It's time for game time decisions for Ohio State against Penn State. These are where we think that Ryan Day or James Franklin have big decisions to make, and or maybe even players on the team, but the repercussions could decide what happened, who the winner is of Saturday's Big Ten East Division clash. Doug, what is your game time decision?
I'm obsessed with this. It's the thing I've been talking about for the last couple of days. I'm curious about how Ohio State's tackles handle Penn State's defensive ends. The way Penn State normally lines up, Shaka Toney is normally over the left tackle and Jason Awe is normally over the right tackle. So we're talking about Thayer Munford versus Shaka Toney and Jason Awe versus Nicholas Petit-Frere. Shaka Toney is a guy who wins more with technique. He has a great get off. If last year, when you watched Ohio State film, if you slowed it, if you paused the play right after the snap, you would see how often Chase Young was moving and nobody else was moving yet. That's what Shaka Toney does. If you pause snaps, he has a great get off. And so he mostly wins with speed, getting around the edge. Thayer Munford's going to have to be ready and not get beat around the edge a lot. Jason Awe is a physical specimen. He will bull rush you. He has some moves. He will beat double teams. This is a big ask for Nicholas Petit-Frere in his second career start. And so do they do more 12 personnel and have tight ends help in pass protection and only have two guys in a route? Do they keep running backs in to help? Do they double team guys? How do they choose to go about trying to handle these defensive ends? But I think in the end, it's going to come a lot down to how Thayer Munford and Nicholas Petit-Frere play in these two matchups. And then if they are getting beat, what Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson and Greg Studrawa do to adjust and give them help if they need it.
My game time decision is on offense, and it deals with the receivers for the second week in a row. Last week, I said that Ohio State needed to target Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson in bunches, and they did that. They ended up with 13 receptions out of 14 targets. The one target that was an incompletion to Olave in the end zone very easily could have been a completion there for a touchdown. This week, it's on Penn State's side, though. Penn State has to limit the number of targets that those guys get, or not necessarily the targets they get, but certainly the receptions that they get. If you start giving Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave the ball 13, 14, 15 times a game as an opponent, you've probably already lost. I don't know. Those guys are too dynamic. You're going to have to give up something to Ohio State, and I think what we've seen so far is that there are some talented young receivers on this team, but they are young or at the very least inexperienced, a lot of them. We don't know, the tight ends are talented too, but they don't typically burn you the way that Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson can over the top, especially in conjunction with what Justin Fields has on his right arm. So I think you've got to make Ohio State beat you with those other guys. You've got to lock down Olave and Wilson somehow and make Ohio State beat you underneath, or make somebody else prove that they can go deep and beat you over the top. Stephen, what is your game time decision?
Yeah, I'm going to focus on the running game, and I'm going to have a little over-under number here. And the over-under number is 6.2. J.K. Dobbins averaged 4.3 yards per carry in week one last season. Trey Sermon and Master Teague averaged 4.2 yards combined in week one of this season. J.K. Dobbins ended up ramping that up and going for 8.3 the next week against Cincinnati. I'm not expecting that number from Trey Sermon and Master Teague to do that, so I split the difference of what would have been if JK went from 4.3 to 8.3, and then the split the difference would be 4.2 to 8.2. I took in the middle and went 6.2 yards. Can those two, they had 23 carries last week. They'll probably be around somewhere in that distance together this week as well. Can they be 6.2 yards per carry at the bare minimum? That's improvement. It's not J.K. Dobbins level improvement, but you can't expect that. But if they can combine for 6.2 yards per carry, that's a pretty quality day against a top-tier Big Ten opponent.
I think it's a really quality day if they can do that.
I think they're playing a better defense than J.K. Dobbins did in week two last year, too. No offense to Cincinnati, although they did give up 42 points to Ohio State, so maybe offense to Cincinnati is apt there. The other thing that's tricky with averages sometimes is like a guy runs for a 1 yard touchdown, it cuts down what his average was for that day. But I think you're right. There needs to just be more punch, more zip from the running game than there was in week one. I think that'll go a long way towards helping Ohio State win this game on Saturday. Come to cleveland.com/OSU after the game. Get the text 614-350-3315. We'll be texting throughout the game. Analysis, updates, things we see, things that are going on. Come to cleveland.com.